What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 new most broken builds in part of Exile's 2 new update, The Dawn of the Hunt. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of each setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on, then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it, and then finally we will go over the passive skill tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what charm should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. So this setup is a new combo between the Spark Sorceress and the Cast Comet and the Time Freeze. Our build will rely on high spark crits rather than drowning them in hundreds of different sparks. This way our clear speed will be as good as any other sorceress, but against bosses is the place where we are going to shine. Our crit scaling will reach crazy levels of damage. Even if you don't one-shot the boss, then you will have about 13 to 14 seconds, plus 7 seconds and even 3 more additional seconds of the time stops in your disposal. So if you are ready to destroy enemies and pretty much one-shot the bosses, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the Sorceress and our ascendancy is the Chronomancer. Then for the first skill we have Time Freeze with the Wind Wave, Second Wind and Unbreakable. Then second we got the Time Snap with no support gems. Then next we got Temporal Rift with Ingenuity. Next we have Temporal Chains with the Cursed Ground, Encumbrance, Expanse, Magnified Effect and Ritualistic Curse. Then for the next one we have the Cast on Critical with the Comet, Spell Echo, Elemental Focus, Inspiration and the Concentrated Effect. Next we got Conductivity with the Heightened Curse and the Focus Curse. Next we got the Soul Offering with the Minion Mastery, Dance Macrobee and the Ablation. Next we have Frost Wall with the Icicle, Cold Mastery, Spell Cascade and the Cold Exposure. Next up we have the Archmage with the Clarity and the Lightning Mastery. And finally we are using the Spark with the Acceleration, Electrocute, Consider Casting, Arcane Surge and the Arcane Tempo. Most of this setup is structured around using our sparks for AoE and temporal chains with Time Freeze for the single target. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node, and then go like this while taking all of these 3, so the raw power, practice signs and the critical overload. Then now we keep on going until we get to the sudden escalation. Then from here again we keep going until the top and then take right. And then keep going until we get to the Whispers of the Doom, and then get both these lightning nodes. Then afterwards we keep going while taking pretty much all of these nodes right here, and then our second stop point is at this Eldritch Battery Keystone. And then finally from here we want to get all the way down here while taking these 3, so the True Strike, for the Juggler and the Deadly Force. And now from this point and onwards we can circle back and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on the priority doesn't really matter that much. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Footprints in the Sand, then second now and again, then next we want the Ultimate Command, and then finally select the Unbound and Core. So feel free to use this exact same path as we have right here, and don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Siphoning Wand, and for the bonus stats we want to gain damage as extra lightning damage, increased spell damage, more to max mana, more levels to all cold spells, increased mana regen and critical hit chance. Then also we got an offhand called the Expert Plummet Focus with Energy Shield. And for more we want increased spell and lightning damage, max mana, more to intelligence and increased mana regen and critical hit chance to spells. Then also we have the second weapon set, which is very important for our build to fully function. So for the weapon we got the Rattling Scepter with the max mana, reduced attribute requirements and more levels of all minion skills. While for our offhand we got the Crest of the Ardura Shield with increased armor and energy shield, more to intelligence and increased mana regen and cooldown recovery. Then for helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with energy shield, and for more we got max energy shield, max mana and more to fire and cold resistance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Kate Raiment with energy shield, and for more we want increased mana regen and flask mana recovery, more to spirit and chaos and lightning resistance. Then for the belt we have the plate belt with more to armor, max mana and cold and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the expert Sombri gloves with energy shield. And for more we want max energy shield, max mana and more to critical damage bonus. Then for boots we're using the expert feather sandals with energy shield. And for more we need increased movement speed, max energy shield and max mana. Then for our first ring we got the amethyst ring with the chaos resistance. And for more we want increased lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed and mana regen. While for the second one we have the breach ring with increased cold and lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed and increased mana regen rate. And then finally for amulet we have the solar amulet with more to spirit. And for bonus stats we want max mana, more to spirit and increased mana regen. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So, our rotation is quite simple, but you will need to get used to it. So what we want to do is first of all start by using the temporal chains. Then we follow that up with the conductivity. Then next use the time freeze in the combination with the soul offering. Then next we also want to activate the frost wall, and then from here just spam the sparks until the boss dies. But mainly for AoE and weak enemies, we basically will turn into a spark build. So just keep spamming sparks and see all of these crazy crits popping off left and right. The only thing you need to keep in mind is the defense. Our build does not have energy shields, so mind over matter is a good defensive layer, but should not be heavily relied on in the endgame. While the time freeze has a high cooldown, so feel free to use it 24/7. Then also the second wind for 33% no cooldown. And then the time snap reset will allow you to use the time freeze continuously in the combat. Overall, if you can master these skills, then you will become unkillable with very high DPS output at the same time. This setup is known as the Flicker Strike build, which generates massive amounts of frenzy charges from the combat frenzy by freezing and electrocuting enemies, which then we can even further convert to the power charges with our resonance keystone. Every time we have the power charges, we want to spend them on the Flicker Strike. Sometimes we can get so many rapid shots that we can get one-shotted by just how many enemies we dash through. And that is why for defense, we want to focus on building up our physical damage reduction and the shield charges, which then are further doubled by our Grim Feast buff. So if you're looking for the new top 1 monk build, then here it is. So let me show you the build, and for the main class, I have chosen to go with the monk, and our ascendancy is the invoker. Then for the first skill we have the Flicker Strike, and for support gems we want to go with the Perpetual Charge, Close Combat, Heavy Swing, Heft and the Concentrated Effect. Then second we get the Tempest Fury with the Electrocute, Rage, Martial Tempo, Inspiration and Neural Overload. Then next we got the Charge Staff with the Persistence, Conduction, Primal Armament and Raising Tempest. Next we have the Herald of the Thunder with the Cold Infusion, Glaciation and Ice Bite. Next up we have the Ghost Dance, we just fast forward. Next we get the Grim Feast with the Clarity and Cannibalism. Next we have the Herald of the Ice with the Cold Mastery, Magnified Effect, Lightning Infusion and Innervate. Next we got the Wind Dancer with the Pin on Lockdown. Then for one of the last ones we have the Tempest Belt with the Overabundance, Rage Forge and the Potential. And finally for the last one we are using the Combat Frenzy with the Profusion. Most of this setup is structured around using the Flicker Strike to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node. Then next let's go and take all of these 3, so the Flow Like Water, Mindful Awareness and the Crashing Wave. Then next up we want to keep on going and take both of these whole circles, so the Power Within and the Lust for Power. Then from here let's keep going, and then next go up top here while taking all of these, so the Resonance Keystone while also getting the True Strike for the Juggler and the Deadly Force. And then from here we can go all the way up top, and from this point you can just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for gear and skill gems. And then after that, spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more dexterity. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again. And for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Lead Me Through the Grace, as this makes you gain spirit per energy shield and evasion on your body armor. This should be one of the first gear pieces you craft or purchase to reach enough spirit to use all of your passive skills. Then second, we get and Protect Me from Harm. This one is crucial for defense, allowing you to gain additional physical damage reduction based on your evasion rating. Then third, we get Sunder My Enemies, which is a huge DPS increase. It also means that you don't have to spec any penetration nodes. And then finally, we have the I Am the Blizzard, which adds additional cold damage and makes it easier to freeze the enemies. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back to middle, and this time take the left side and get all of these nodes. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives, which in order you unlock them doesn't really matter. So again, it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. And then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup. And then finally we have our breach setup. Then moving over to the next part, which is the gear. The weapon of our choice is the Crescent Quarterstaff with a crit and weapon speed. And for bonus stats we want increased physical damage, then also adds to physical or cold damage, then even more crit like crit chance, crit damage bonus and increased attack speed. Then for helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want even more max energy shield, then basic increased energy shield, then max life and increased critical hit chance. Then for chest we have the Expert Fey Veyor jacket with evasion and energy shield. And for more we got Chaos Resistance, Evasion, Max and Increased Evasion and Energy Shield. Then also more to Intelligence and Fire and Cold Resistance. Then for belt we have the Utility Belt with 20% faster flask recovery. And for more we need Max Life, Evasion, more to Charm slots, and then Lightning and Fire Resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Spiral Warps with the Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we got adds cold damage to attacks, max life, increased attack speed and fire and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the Expert Threaded Shoes with Evasion and Energy Shield. And for more we need increased movement speed, max life and then chaos and cold resistance. Then for first ring we got the Unsent Ring with 1 additional skill slot. And for more we need adds lightning damage to attacks, max life, percentage to all elemental resistances, and more to lightning resistance. While then on the second one we have the Breach Ring, with max quality now is at least 50%. And for the extras we got max life, adds cold damage, percentage to all elemental resistances, and cold and fire resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Serpent's Egg with bunch of stuff, like increased rarity, more to all attributes, more chaos resistance, increased mana regen, and most importantly, gain additional charge when you gain a charge, so pretty much this will double it. This amulet is the best in slot but not required, so if you can't afford it or find it, then you can just go with anything else with similar stats. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap. This is a starter setup which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And I will give you 2 rotations, so one for AoE and one for single targets. So our highest damage rotation for AoE mob farming and maps is to start by activating the Tempest Fury, then next use the Charge Staff, then afterwards one more Tempest Fury, then now use once the Flicker Strike, then again one more Tempest Fury, and then finish it off with one more Flicker Strike. Our ailments are essential for the Flicker Strike to function, as it is our primary method to generate power charges. So that's why each time we want to use the Tempest Fury to activate it and keep on going. And then for the second rotation, this time for the bosses we want to use once the Tempest Fury, then the Tempest Belt, then again the Tempest Fury in combination with the Charge Staff. Then next we do the same thing again, so Fury with the Charge Staff, then use twice the Tempest Fury and then finish it off with the Tempest Belt. Overall we want to place down our Tempest Belt as much as possible, as it gives us a massive damage bonus, especially against bosses. And then lastly, our evasion and energy shield will allow us to utilize the Ghost Dance, as well as grant us with Spirit from the Body armor. And then lastly, our Vision and Energy Shield will allow us to utilize the Ghost Dance, as well as granting us with the Spirit from the Body armor to enable all of our passive skills to work properly. This setup's main focus is to run and press from 1 to 2 skills and then target big enemy groups to then weaken them and explode. One of the most powerful skills that we have in our arsenal is the Shockwave totem, and as you can see from the gameplay, we are just running into the enemies and one-shotting them without even trying. Also, our Ancestral Warrior totem and the Scavenge plating makes the most out of this by effectively extending the damage of this hit many times over, in order to kill big targets like the bosses or tanky rare monsters. Of course, like most melee builds, the armor explosion was nerfed, but our particular setup wasn't impacted as much as other melee builds, so currently this is by far one of the best warrior builds in the game. If you are looking for a powerful auto AoV machine to target enemies and delete them in split seconds, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the warrior, and our ascendancy is the warbringer. Then for the first skill we have the Mage Strike with the support gem called the Rage, Armor Explosion, Magnified Effect and the Primal Armament. And even after the new changes on how the armor breaker works, the Mage Strike still works perfectly fine, as long as you use it with the Cultist Great Hammer. Then second we got the Shockwave totem with Inspiration, Close Combat and Overpower. Then next we got the Scavenge plating with the Precision, Vitality and Clarity. Next we have the Ancestral Warrior totem with the Sunder, Super Critical and Overabundance. Next up we have the Time of the Need with Fast Forward, Herbalism and Clarity. And finally for the last one we are using the Hammer of the Gods with Fist of War, Concentrated Effect, Exploit Weakness and Heft. Most of this setup is structured around using the Shockwave totem and the Mage Strike to delete enemies in split seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. And as our build is already super broken, so we don't have to use more than these 6 active skill gems. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this melee damage node, and then go like this until we get all of these 4. So Brutal, Smash, Sturdy Metal and Relentless. Then next up we want to go to this top right side like this, and then go to the left until we get this whole thing, so Ancestral Reach and the Supportive Ancestors. Next we circle back a little and this time keep going until we reach the Devastation node. Then next up we keep going and take the right side, and then keep going more until we get both of these, so Carving Earth and Hardened Wood. Then now keep moving forwards until the end, and from here we want to get both of these totem nodes. Which side you choose first doesn't really matter as long as you get both of them. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements to gear and skill gems, and then spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more strength. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Anvil's Weight, then second get the Imploding Impacts, then third we want the Answered Call, and then finally for the fourth option go with the Wooden Wall. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus stats that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. Our warrior build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or essences. So when we start, we want to first of all get to this bottom right side like this. Then from here we want to go until we get all the way to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then next we go back to the middle, and this time take the bottom left side and get all of these passives. And then when all of these are done, then now we go again to the middle and now take the middle path and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Cultist Great Hammer, which is special, because its base stat does that our strike now deals splash damage to the targets within 1.8 meter range. And as I said, after the new changes to how the armor breaker works, the Mage Strike will now still work perfectly fine, but you specifically have to use this weapon, or otherwise switch the Mage Strike skill for something different like the Stampede. And then for bonus stats, we want increased physical damage, more armor, and more levels of all melee skills. Then for the helmet we have the warrior great helm with armor. And for more we want max life, more accuracy, more intelligence, and fire resistance. Then for chest we have the advanced full plate with armor. And for more we need max life, armor, and cold resistance. Then for the belt we have the rawhide belt with 20% quicker flask recovery. And for bonus stats we want max life, more armor, and +2 to charm slots. Then for gloves we got the interested gloves with energy shield. And for more we need max life, max mana, and more levels to all melee skills. Then for boots we're using the advanced bronze greaves with armor. And for more we for sure want increased movement speed, and then also max life and resistances like cold and fire. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with fire resistance. And for more we'd want add physical damage, more intelligence, and lightning resistance. While on the second one we have the topaz ring with lightning resistance. And for more we need max life, max mana, more strength, and chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the crimson amulet with life regen per second. And for more we want max life, more armor, more dexterity, and fire resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have runes. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And to be honest, because of our setup, this build will be extremely powerful, no matter in what order you use your skills. But if you're interested in the most optimized damage rotation, then here it is. So for both clearing and bossing, you want to place down your Shockwave totem, and Ancestral Warrior, which is linked with the Sunder totem. And then you can also use the Mace Strike to get a bit of extra damage in, and then later to generate Rage as well. And finally, when you are at high tier maps and at the full endgame, you'll also be wanting to use the Hammer of the Gods on stunned bosses. But since it relies on having more than just plus levels to all melee skills on your weapon, so it might not deal as much damage for you as it does for other builds. And that's why our main objective will be to focusing on crazy AoE damage and less at single targets.